Everyone wants to be Filipino until they actually try. Sounds funny, right? But it's true. All over the world, countries have looked at the Philippines and thought, we can do that too. Export a friendly workforce, spread our culture, and charm the global stage. Easy, right? Wrong. Because being Filipino isn't just about working overseas or singing karaoke like a pro. It's about something deeper, an unbeatable mix of hospitality, resilience, talent, joy, and heart. From the warm smiles of OFWs in every corner of the globe to the Bayanihan spirit that unites entire communities, Filipinos have created a global identity that's impossible to replicate. And trust us, many nations have tried. Some copied the diaspora model. Others pushed cultural exports. A few even trained workers to mimic Filipino service. But they all ran into one hard truth. You can't fake the Filipino spirit. We're diving into the stories of the countries that tried and failed to be like Filipinos. Get ready to find out who flopped, why they did, and what makes the Filipino identity truly one of a kind. What makes Filipinos so unique? What exactly makes the Filipino so hard to copy? It starts with something money can't buy: the smile. Filipinos have mastered what many economists now call the smile economy. In every hotel lobby, airport terminal, cruise ship, and hospital ward, that trademark warmth radiates effortlessly. It's not just good customer service. It's genuine human connection. With over 10 million overseas Filipino workers, OFWs, spread across more than 100 countries, the Filipino presence is global. And yet, no matter where they go, they bring something unique. Emotional intelligence fused with quiet resilience, what locals call akazing love. Whether caring for elderly patients in Canada or teaching English in Japan, Filipinos carry their culture with pride, but blend with their environment with grace. They speak fluent English, but they never lose their roots. They embrace modern life, but they never forget Sunday Mass. They hustle hard abroad, but karaoke night is non-negotiable. It's this rare balance, religious but tolerant, fun-loving but hard-working, that makes the Filipino identity so magnetic. Cultural exports like Jollibee, teleseries, TikTok dance trends, and even beauty queens continue to shape global perceptions. Filipino nurses are hailed as the gold standard of care. Filipino entertainers, from boxing legends to Broadway stars, have made their mark worldwide. And when disaster strikes, Filipinos don't wait for government aid. They call their neighbors, pick up the debris, and get to work. That's Bayanihan in action. According to a 2024 Asian Resilience Survey, the Philippines ranked among the top 3 happiest and most resilient populations in Asia, despite facing natural disasters, inflation, and political instability. So, when other countries look at the Philippines and say, let's do what they're doing, they're only seeing the surface. What they miss is the spirit underneath. And as we'll soon see, trying to copy that magic often leads to awkward, if not outright failed, results. 1. Vietnam. Vietnam took notes from the Philippines' labor export strategy. It began sending workers to Japan, Korea, and the Middle East in massive numbers. The goal? Boost remittances and improve its economy, just like the Philippines. But here's where it stumbled. Language barriers made integration difficult. Vietnamese workers were often confined to manual labor roles with little room for advancement. Unlike Filipinos, who often serve as nurses, caregivers, and even managers, Vietnamese migrant workers lacked global recognition. There's also a stark contrast in perception. Filipinos are often praised for their sunny attitude, strong work ethic, and flexibility. Vietnamese migrants, while hardworking, don't share the same cultural compatibility abroad. especially in healthcare and domestic service, where emotional warmth is crucial. Despite the similarities in history and struggle, Vietnam failed to globalize its charm the way Filipinos did. The difference? Filipinos don't just work abroad, they belong abroad. 2. Myanmar. Myanmar has endured decades of internal conflict, repression, and economic hardship. Its people are resilient, there's no doubt. But resilience alone doesn't make a nation globally beloved. Myanmar attempted to mirror the Filipino diaspora model, sending workers to neighboring Asian countries. But the results were disappointing. Political instability led to poor training, few protections, and negative international perception. Unlike Filipinos, who carry joy with their struggle, many from Myanmar lack global cultural engagement. No karaoke nights, no teleseries, no vibrant cultural diplomacy. It's resilience, yes, but without the joy. And that joy, that ability to turn hardship into harmony, is what makes Filipinos stand apart. Myanmar's model failed because it tried to replicate the outcome without. 3. Brazil. Brazil and the Philippines actually share a lot. Tropical weather, religious roots, colorful festivals, and undeniably warm people. Brazil even tried to export its culture, music, dance, football. But when it came to building global people power, Brazil missed the mark. The biggest issue? Language. Portuguese is a beautiful language, but it's not widely spoken globally. This limited the reach of Brazilian workers, entertainers, and cultural ambassadors. While Brazilians are loved for their energy, their diaspora is fragmented and often doesn't enter the caregiving, hospitality, or education sectors in the same way Filipinos do. Brazil tried to replicate the Filipino magic in beauty pageants and overseas work, but lacked the consistent humility and adaptability that Filipinos exude naturally. Brazil exports charisma. Filipinos export connections. And that's not something you could translate. 4. India. India arguably has the largest and most powerful global diaspora. From Silicon Valley to Saudi Arabia, Indian talent is everywhere. They dominate tech, medicine, and academia. So why did India fail to replicate the Filipino model? Because India's diaspora is often elite and insular, brilliant, yes, but not always beloved. Cultural friction, accents, and a lack of service sector charm mean Indians are respected, but not necessarily embraced the way Filipinos are. Filipinos blend in and adapt. They listen more than they talk. Indian migrants, in contrast, often face integration issues, partly because of regional politics and historical baggage. India copied the scale, but missed the soul. You can't outsource humility and emotional intelligence. And that's where the Filipino model wins every time. 5. Egypt. Egypt sends millions of workers to the Gulf region, just like the Philippines. But their migration story is largely one of economic necessity, not cultural contribution. Egyptian migrants often struggle with assimilation, especially in conservative or hierarchical societies. Unlike Filipinos, who mold themselves gently into their host communities, Egyptians tend to keep to their own, creating separation, not synergy. The Filipino diaspora is celebrated not just for labor, but for personality. Egyptians work hard, but they often aren't trained for the service roles that require compassion, patience, and soft skills. Egypt's model tried to match the quantity of OFWs, but lacked the training, humility, and human-centered approach that made Filipino workers indispensable worldwide. 6. South Korea. South Korea is a global powerhouse. K-pop, K-drama, beauty products. South Korea has nailed the cultural export game. But here's the twist. Despite all the glamour, Korean soft power is packaged, not personal. K-pop stars are trained in studios. TV personalities are carefully curated. It's all impressive, but it's not authentic warmth. Filipinos don't need stage lights to be loved. Their sincerity comes across in a smile, a laugh, a song sung at a family dinner. South Korea tried to replicate Filipino likability, but its idol culture often feels unreachable or artificial. And when it comes to overseas workers, South Koreans rarely venture abroad for caregiving or service. They try to dominate hearts through screens. Filipinos did it in person. 7. Turkey. Turkey is the crossroads of East and West. It's culturally rich, historically significant, and politically ambitious. Turkey also sends workers abroad and promotes its culture through soap operas and cuisine. But here's where it failed: cultural outreach without emotional openness. Turkish workers and expats are often seen as distant or nationalistic. Filipinos, on the other hand, are seen as globally inclusive. They learn the local language. They show up for birthdays. They help even when no one asks. Turkey copied the surface of Filipino cultural export, but didn't foster the mindset of emotional service. In a globalized world, strategy alone can't substitute sincerity. 8. Nigeria. Nigeria has a highly educated diaspora. Nigerian doctors, engineers, and professors dominate in the US, UK, and beyond. Nigeria tried to build a global people power movement, just like the Philippines. But Nigeria struggles with image problems, driven by media stereotypes, political issues, and a sometimes confrontational cultural tone. Filipinos are seen as non-threatening. Nigerians, though brilliant, are often perceived as aggressive or defensive in foreign societies. Nigeria wanted to lead with intellect. Filipinos led with humility. And in the battle for hearts, not just jobs, 9. Russia. Russia wanted to be a soft power giant. It sent students and professionals abroad, created global news outlets, and spread influence via media. But none of it translated to affection. Russians are often seen as cold, rigid, or overly formal. Even in professional environments, the human connection gets lost. Filipinos, by contrast, win people over with warmth, whether they're janitors or CEOs. Russia tried to impose soft power through structure. The Philippines earned it through sincerity. You can't script kindness. That's why Russia's model never warmed the world. 10. Saudi Arabia. Now here's the irony. Saudi Arabia, one of the biggest employers of Filipino workers, tried to localize the service industry through Saudization, a policy aimed at replacing foreign workers with Saudi citizens. But it backfired. Saudi citizens were reluctant to take on jobs as caregivers, cleaners, or waitstaff. There was a cultural stigma attached to these roles. The same jobs Filipinos did with pride were now being abandoned or done poorly. The result? Labor shortages, customer dissatisfaction, and stalled businesses. Saudi Arabia learned the hard way. You can't just fill a role, you have to live it. And no one lives the role of global caregiver, worker, and friend like the Filipino does. Why the Filipino formula can't be replicated. So what's the secret ingredient? Why can't anyone seem to pull off what Filipinos do so effortlessly? Because the Filipino formula isn't about economics, it's about emotion. It's the way a Filipino caregiver sings to her patient. The way an OFW calls home after a 12-hour shift. The way a Filipino teacher becomes everyone's tita at school. You can train skills. You can replicate strategies. But you can't manufacture heart. The Filipino spirit is the product of history, of colonization, resilience, religion, and family. It's the smile after a storm, the laughter in hardship, the service with soul, Where others focus on production, Filipinos focus on presence. Where others aim for recognition, Filipinos earn affection. That's why copycat nations fail. They think it's about sending people abroad. But the Filipino model isn't just about remittances, it's about relationships. That invisible thread of care and community that ties every Filipino wherever they go. You can't fake that, and you definitely can't replace it. What other nations can learn from the Philippines? Rather than copy the Filipino formula, maybe it's time countries learn from it. It's not just about IQ. It's about empathy, listening, and kindness. Filipinos master this, and it shows. In the Philippines, a janitor is called sir. A caregiver is admired. Dignity is in the deed, not the title. Teleseries, fiestas, humor, and songs make Filipinos unforgettable. Culture builds connection. Filipinos grow up speaking English, learning other cultures, and being globally aware. Prepare your people to not just leave the country, but to represent it. No matter the job, be it nurse, nanny, or navigator, Filipinos bring heart. That's irreplaceable. Instead of trying to be Filipino, perhaps the better question is, how can we honor what they do and create our own authentic version of people-centered pride? In the race to global influence, many countries have tried to imitate the Filipino spirit and failed. Why? Because it's not about strategy or statistics. It's about the soul. You can teach someone how to mop a floor, take a patient's vitals, or answer a phone call. But you can't teach someone how to care like a Filipino does. You can't replicate a laugh in the middle of a storm, a smile after heartbreak, or the deep-seated joy of helping others. That's the Filipino edge. Not power, not politics, just pure,